Hello, this is D, and I'm back with another video. Well, today we had a CAT tribunal hearing with Microsoft and the CMA. Now, they wanted to pause their appeal so that they could go forward with a deal. Now, there's a lot of moving parts in this case, and yes, we are at the finish line, and I know a lot of people, myself included, were anticipating this deal to close today. Unfortunately, that does not appear to be the case. Now, there seems to be some confusion on whether Microsoft can close without the UK. Now, I want to reiterate, Microsoft can close without the UK. The UK cannot block this merger worldwide. They can only block it in their region, which is the United Kingdom. However, Microsoft doesn't want to close over the UK. They rather get this deal done and be over with it. Now, don't get it twisted. If Microsoft is forced, they will close without the UK, but it doesn't appear to be the case because it does seem that the CMA and Microsoft are on the same page. Now, today we're going to cover a little bit from Fleury and Miller. It was a pretty long hearing, so I'm going to go through as much as I can. Now, I will say that both sides this time, it did seem to be different in court. I definitely felt a spirit of cooperation. Both sides seem to want to get this deal done. They just have to make sure that procedurally everything is done correctly. And this judge that was proceeding over this case, he also wants both parties to come to an agreement very quickly. He even mentioned that tomorrow's closing date will have a consequence, so both sides should be working towards a deal as soon as possible. So like I said before, we're covering Fleury and Mueller. I'll leave it in the description down below. Now, he goes on to say that the CAT tribunal hearing has started and there is a request by both parties to deactivate the live stream. Justice Smith is hearing this motion alone, neither Professor Newberg or Mr. Teisdale. The other two members of the panel were available on short notice, but this here required immediate attention. Mr. Justice Smith recalls that Microsoft appeal was brought as an expedited appeal, and he's highly unlikely to postpone the July 28th hearing. The decision will be made during or after today's case management conference, but it looks like the CAT declines to stay the case. Mr. Justice Smith wants to know why just about 2 weeks ago the CMA sought a postponement of the appeals hearing without reference to those ongoing negotiations. Mr. Justice Smith clarifies that even if both parties request an appeal, the court can't deny it. He says he's sure that the private litigation under such circumstances, the motion to stay would be denied as well. In particular, it appears that Mr. Justice Smith wants the CMA now to make a very strong argument for the motion to stay, otherwise he will, as he is currently inclined to deny it. As a matter of fairness, he states his current position, he's being very strict. Mr. Justice Smith has a 4-stage process in process. Tribunal must be satisfied with proper legal foundation of discussions between CMA and Microsoft, not as a matter of law that the CMA is right, but wants to know that there is a proper jurisdictional basis for CMA's proposal. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, guys, the UK's court system, it's a lot different and it's harder for me to follow. I really had to go through all of this to just get a firm understanding of what is being said here. Now, I'll give you guys a little bit of a spoiler. The outcome is good. We're going to get there, but it's going to be a long read. Now, the CAT won't rule on the lawfulness of the CMA wants to go forward, but Mr. Justice Smith needs to get an idea of what the legal basis is. 2, the next step must be satisfied or sufficient factual basis of exercising jurisdiction, what change of circumstances. In the first 2 requirements are met, question is whether the CMA is indeed seeking a stay for those reasons. Motion must be grounded in reality, cannot be hypothetical. Thinking behind motion to stay must be explained. Final question, in first 3 requirements met, Mr. Justice Smith must be convinced that there won't be justified criticism later of having granted a stay. Mr. Justice Smith's position is that legally in the US proceedings don't have a bearing on the UK case. He wants to be satisfied that the events in the US, and he did indeed say the FTC's failure to win the injunction, are not really what drives the CMA's motivation. So the judge here, he kind of wants to make sure that both parties argue their cases, that they don't waste the court's time, that it's going to have to be a real significant reason for them to stay the appeal. Now, of course, that significant reason would be Microsoft and the CMA coming close to an agreement, or both sides in good faith thinking that they will have a deal. Now, the judge goes on to say there may not be a decision today. The answer may be yes. It will not be a definitive no. If necessary, there will be a further hearing. Then they took a break. So this is a really long read. I'm just going to have to kind of skip over a couple parts here. Now, the CMA accepts that the court's decision and that they have to give a proper reason. The parties' agreement, CMA and Microsoft, is relevant, but they don't claim it's sufficient all by itself to get the stay granted. Okay, so we're just going to kind of blast through these parts here. So basically, they were asking for a 2-month stay because Microsoft is reconstructing their deal with the CMA. So they need some time to go over all those documents. So they basically explained this to the judge. And this is the part where they start to get into the British law. And I do have a recording from Florian Mueller today. He did have a space. For some reason, his space cut out and the rest of it was kind of mute. I think he muted his mic by accident, but I did get a little bit of it. So I think this part is probably best for him to explain because it's going to take me a lot of reading to explain something that he can give you a grasp of in maybe like 5 minutes. So we're just going to listen to this part, then we're going to come back and read the rest of the ruling, and I'm going to give you my opinions, and we're going to get into some other stuff.
There are spaces in recent weeks where, while we were talking, information was released somewhere, published somewhere. Problem is, while I'm speaking, I cannot really also look at the chat messages. I will try to do it this time, in fact, to maybe from time to time take a break for a minute or so. That just enables me to then read messages, because sometimes people do alert me to important stuff. Legally, it would be doable. The CMA could do it because in Meta Giphy, they had that situation that Meta had already closed the deal, but then the CMA investigated nonetheless, and there was some whole separate requirement. I do not know all of the details of that because I've always been more interested in the actual Meta Giphy decision and what it said by the appeals court, by the CAT, but there was something, and Meta also got fined to the tune of 50 million for not fully respecting that whole separate kind of thing. So who knows? Maybe they can somehow make it work. Given that the spirit I saw there, that I sensed over the live stream in that courtroom, is so incredibly cooperative, constructive, and based on mutual trust, why not? But it could also be that the CMA just does not want to do that. So let's not speculate, because if they're going to do it, then we're going to know actually within much less than 24 hours, because if they wanted to close under that agreement, of course, they can always modify things. They can always waive certain deadlines, but then it would actually happen in 19 hours from now. That would be 9 a.m. New York time. Right now, it's actually 2 p.m. in the afternoon, New York time. So, going back to what happened and trying to explain it so that people can make sense of it. There was obviously a lot of terminology there. They started using acronyms like, for example, MCC, Material Change of Circumstance. RMS, relevant merger situation, and referencing, fortunately not too many different ones, but like 3 different statutes, different articles of the UK Enterprise Act of 2002, which is one of the UK's antitrust laws. They have another competition law called Competition Act, but mergers are subject to the Enterprise Act, and that Enterprise Act, and that kind of makes it convenient. There's not like multiple laws here. It's not like one law for the CMA and one for the CAT. The CMA and the CAT are basically governed by the same law, which is the Enterprise Act. With the CMA actually working on that basis, and the CAT also having then the authority to interpret it. The CAT had originally done everything in its power to resolve this appeal, to adjudicate it as swiftly as possible, which is why they had originally scheduled, but we can really forget about that. There's no more way that they are actually going to be realistically in that courtroom on next week's Friday to kick off that appellate hearing. Not going to happen. Theoretically, it could, of course, because as of now, Mr. Justice Smith has not yet granted that motion to postpone the whole thing, to actually reschedule the appellate hearing for October, which means it's so far down the road that the possibility of that happening is purely hypothetical, but it is apparently not totally impossible, which is why Microsoft's counsel, just to be on the safe side, asked Mr. Justice Smith toward the end to already put that somehow on the court's calendar just in case it is needed. But it is, again, and we were talking here about the difference now between what everybody is trying to accomplish versus what could theoretically happen because it's possible under the law, because there could be some unforeseeable events, such as, for example, the CMA not accepting that divestiture-based solution, even though there's every indication as of now that they're going to clear the deal. No worries about whether the deal will happen. Again, hypothetical, theoretical risks exist. That's why I'm not giving anybody investment advice ever. I'm not saying it's 99.99% certain to happen. What I'm saying is that everybody is trying to make it happen. Of course, if I don't know, something totally surprising happens. There's a new CMA CEO next week or something. Then those are the kinds of scenarios where you don't know what would happen. Or what if all of a sudden the merging parties were not being constructive. So, but those are hypothetical possibilities. We do have to live with them. When we get on an airplane, there's also the hypothetical possibility of the plane crashing. Now, admittedly, the risk here is higher than that of an airplane crash, but it is still, in my opinion, and not just mine, but also the stock market's opinion, because really the spread, meaning the difference between what people are paying right now for an Activision share versus what Microsoft's going to pay when the deal closes, is actually limited. Part of that could also have to do with investors thinking of various scenarios, but mostly it really is because the assumption here is the operating assumption that this deal in all likelihood is going to go forward. And what contributed greatly to that is the Sony deal. And the Sony deal also played a role today. So now, instead of basically going over the whole course of that hearing again, it makes more sense to really just focus on the beginning and the end, and to explain the actual issue so that people will understand better, and maybe even those who did listen to this long hearing, what they were really talking about and why the court had problems, and why Microsoft, together with ABK on the one side of that courtroom and on the other side, the CMA's lawyer, a new one this time, Mr. Bailey, why they had some work to do, some explaining and convincing to do. And they were successful in the end, because Mr. Justice Smith, in principle, is fine with this course of action, because he really, I think, already during the course of today's case management conference, was able to see that they are all serious and sincere.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit more grasp on what happened today in court. Of course, I'm going to give you guys my 2 cents as well. We're just going to go through the ending of the trial there. So the FTC's failure in the U.S. must not be immaterial to the CMA's consideration in this case. Now, the judge reiterated this many times today. So what happened with the FTC can't be the reason why the CMA is coming to the table. However, the judge did give relevance to the Sony deal. So I don't understand that. The FTC's deal should matter. But Sony signing the deal is what really matters. And Sony wasn't really objecting against the cloud arguments that the CMA had. So I'm a little bit lost there. Nonetheless, this is what the judge said. So long story short, basically, they got granted the stay. So the judge was really clear that both parties, they need to get this done quickly, because he's granted them a stay, so it has to be for a reason, right? Otherwise, it would have just been better for them to have gone through the appeal stage. So I'm going to think that in the next, I would say 2 weeks, we should have a decision. Now, there seems to be a misconception with a lot of people, and I see a lot of different reports out there, and I just want to clarify a few things. Now, Microsoft initially did not offer Sony a 10-year contract. I believe they offered them games up until 2027, and that included all Activision games that are currently on the PlayStation platform. Now, Sony didn't accept that agreement, and then Microsoft sent them a 10-year agreement for Call of Duty on the PlayStation platform, and Sony rejected that offer. Now, this was said in court under oath. So we have Jim Ryan saying that he didn't want that deal. We have Microsoft saying that they offered him that deal under oath. So I don't understand where the misconception comes that Microsoft didn't offer them a 10-year deal to begin with, and that Sony really won. No, Sony didn't win here because initially they were offered other Activision games on their platform, the games that are currently there on the PlayStation now. This was not in the final deal, and this was not in the deal that they signed. Microsoft already offered them a 10-year contract. They still didn't want that. So Sony made this all about Call of Duty instead of focusing on the other Activision IPs. Now they're only guaranteed to get Call of Duty. And now I'm not going to say that Microsoft is not going to allow other Activision games on there. They might. Some of them may be a timed exclusive. Some of them may come day and date. The point is they are only guaranteed Call of Duty, and Sony did that to themselves. Personally, I think they should have taken the deal till 2027, or at least taken a 10-year contract and say, give us these other exclusive games till 2027. This is not a W for Sony, so I don't know how people are doing their coping, but it's just ridiculous. Another thing I want to mention is people saying that Microsoft cannot close over the UK. This is false. Now, I know a lot of people in the UK don't want the deal to close over them, so I understand the passion, and I don't want it to close in the UK either. I think the UK and, well, I should say the CMA and Microsoft, they're going to come to an agreement. This deal is going to get done, so don't worry about that. But I do understand the frustration from UK residents. Nonetheless, Microsoft can close over the UK. They don't need the UK to close this deal. The UK regulators are only responsible for the United Kingdom, not for America, not for all these other regions that have approved the deal. However, Microsoft, they don't want the optics of going over the UK when an appeal process is going on. They know that they're very close to signing a deal. They know they don't have any imminent threats from the FTC right now, so they have a little bit more time to play with, and they want to get this deal done. So they're doing the right thing, and they're going to wait for approval in the UK. Now, for those of you that still think that Microsoft can't close over the UK, they can, and I'm going to show you right now with Satya Nadella saying that himself.
Look, I mean, the fundamental logic of this deal, bringing more competition and more opportunity for publishers and gamers, still holds. So as far as I'm concerned, we keep going. We wait for what the European Union decides. We have a process. We obviously respect the sovereignty of the United Kingdom and the CMA to decide what's good, in that country.
Could you ever see an age where you would sell the product in the US if it was approved, sell the products in Europe and not sell it in the UK if they didn't approve it?
Let's wait for it all to play out.
So there you have it. Satya Nadella saying he's not ruling it out. Let's see how this plays out. Says that they can do this. Now, will Microsoft do this? No, it doesn't look like they're going to do that. They're going to make an agreement with the CMA. There's going to be some divestiture. I can't even say the damn word, but they're going to break up their cloud gaming business in the UK. They're going to hand it off to a third-party company to do the deal, and the CMA is going to approve it. So I think we're going to have to wait anywhere from now till a couple of weeks. I don't think it's going to close today, obviously. Could it close tomorrow? Possibly. Now, I guess we're going to find out more tomorrow what's going to happen, because if they do not close this deal, they're going to have to do an extension with Activision. Of course, I'll be here to report on that. I also want to add in that the judge at the end, when he was asking for the submissions, the CMA said that they could have it by midday Tuesday. And the judge said that's not realistic. You can give it to us by Thursday. Now, some people online seem to think that that was some type of win for the CMA, that this deal is not going through. And this deal is going to go through. If the CMA said that they are willing to provide it by tomorrow, their evidence, then that means that they're pretty close to a deal on both sides. So for those that think the deal is not going to go through, it's going to go through. The CMA and Microsoft will hash out a deal. It's just going to take a little bit longer than usual. And these guys, I don't know, this is just the way that they deal with things. This is their coping mechanism. I don't understand just ignoring the facts that this deal is going to go through, that the CMA and Microsoft are sitting down and are on the same page. And we haven't been able to say that about the CMA. And I can say confidently that I actually believe the CMA wants to get a deal done with Microsoft and be done with this. And in the long run, they save face. They look like they were strong standing up to Microsoft, and they got a deal with Microsoft, which is far better than what the FTC fared in court. So I don't know what more to say on this. This deal's just going to get done. We're just going to have to be patient. I wish I could say tomorrow this is going through. I'm just as impatient as all of you guys. We've been going through this for such a long time, but I'll say this, we've been going through it for so long that a couple of weeks more shouldn't be that long to wait. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is Xbox Game Pass. Xbox Live has officially been retired. As of the 1st of September, the service will no longer be available. It will be replaced with an Xbox Game Pass core service that gives you access to the Xbox Network multiplayer and brings a bunch of new benefits. This will be retired on the 1st of September and a new service will start. Now, you're going to have a couple of tiers. You're going to have the core tier, which is basically Xbox Live Now, but you do get 25 Game Pass titles that you can play. Games with Gold will end, but let's be honest, it hasn't been good for a long time. It's been a bunch of garbage games that have been added to that service. Now, in the core service, you're going to get access to over 25 Game Pass games, as I said: Among Us, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Grounded, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade, Inside, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, State of Decay 2, Elder Scrolls Online, and a few more. So you're going to get a lot more titles in this service. You're going to get games that you'll actually play, not throwaway games. It's going to remain the same price. So I see some people online being upset about this, and I just don't understand why you're being upset. You're going to get the same service that you had before. You're going to have the online component, and you're going to get access to 25 quality games from Game Pass. Now, some people are saying, but it's so close to the console version of Game Pass, which is just $1 more. Well, it was always $1 close to the Game Pass that was on the console. I don't understand. So, yes, Microsoft wants you to switch over to the Game Pass service that's on the console for $1 more a month. It's an option that you're going to have. You don't have to do it. You can stay with the core service. But I got to be honest with you guys here. This is a smart decision on Microsoft's part. Because when you look at it, for $1 more, why would I not switch over to the console Game Pass service when I can enjoy all of the Game Pass titles? I can enjoy all of these Activision games. I can enjoy all of these Bethesda games, all the first-party games from Microsoft, Halo, Forza, all of the third-party deals that they have in Game Pass for $1 more a month. So yes, it makes a lot more sense to up it to the console version. And yes, Microsoft wants to give the gamers a slight nudge in that direction, but you're not forced to do it. But when you look at it, it just makes sense, so most people are going to do it. So I think this is a bang-up move from Microsoft. Yes, it kind of sucks the nostalgia of Xbox Live going away, but things don't always stay the same, and I think this is a change for the better. It's a better service now because you have access to better games. And the core gamer is going to realize that for $1 more, I can get a much better subscription service by upping it to Game Pass on the console. Now, I'm going to give you guys some advice right now. Buy up all of the Xbox Live Gold cards that you can so that you can convert it over to Game Pass. And there's a bunch of sites that you can get really good codes on, such as CD Keys and other sites. Now, follow me on Twitter at D_Batch. I always kind of post those deals over there. I don't really post them on YouTube. If you guys are lucky, maybe I'll leave it in the description down below somewhere you can get Game Pass codes for cheap. If you have Xbox Live right now, you don't lose anything. You actually gain 25 more games, high quality games. You get to keep all the games that you had in your Xbox Live service. So all the games with gold games that you received before, they stay on your account forever. You own those games. So that is fantastic. Anyways, I want to know what you guys think about this. Personally, I think that Microsoft and the CMA will come to decisions sooner than later. I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the week if they had an agreement between both parties. Also, I think tomorrow we're going to find out if Microsoft extends the date or if the CMA and Microsoft can come to an agreement and close this deal. So the clock is ticking. I'll say this, the deal is going to get done. I just think we're going to have to be a little bit more patient. Yes, Microsoft can close without the UK, but they're choosing not to do that. And I do believe that is the right thing because UK gamers do deserve to have these games. They do deserve to be a part of the ABK acquisition. It's not the residents or the gamers' fault of what's going on with the CMA. And now that Microsoft has won over the FTC and Sony has signed an agreement, I don't think anything is holding them back from doing a deal. I just think right now it's a lot of procedural stuff. So we're just going to have to be patient. Also, let me know what you think about Xbox Live ending. Now, I know it's nostalgic. I love the service, but it's getting an upgrade. You're going to have access to more games, and I think gamers are going to finally realize that for $1 more, Game Pass on the console is just a better value. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and like I usually say, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.